friends call me the fat pastor. I'm the pastor who doesn't go to church.
Yeah, I'm Jeremy, and I have the pleasure of getting to be best friends with the pastor that doesn't go to church.
Oh, man, come on. So we are the Sanctified Heretics.
Sanctified Heretics. Yeah.
Now, again, we probably should remind people why we call ourselves the Sanctified Heretics. I mean, honestly, like when you look at Jesus, you look at his life and the way that people treated him, people considered him a heretic, you know?
Absolutely.
But he still didn't stop saying what he felt like he needed to say.
Right.
We're a little bit different. We ain't the son of God.
Nor do I want to be.
No, I don't. No. I don't want that style at all. But we do get called heretics sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we love Jesus with all of our hearts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, it's fun to explore and kind of turn some heads with that. The Sanctified Heretics is something where, we're not going to hide behind what we think and who we are.
No.
And we're also okay if people want to, tell us who we are, because we know who we are.
Okay, but this is the internet. We know very well people are going to tell us who we are.
Yeah, man. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Right. No, I mean, that's it. We're gonna get that, and that's okay, right? Like we're inviting that we're inviting that onto ourselves.
Yeah.
And the truth is that we're not claiming to have all the knowledge in the world. We're not claiming to be the end of all great knowledge. We just are processing things.
Yeah.
As guys who are good friends.
Yeah.
As guys who love Jesus.
Yeah.
I love the Bible, even though I don't worship the Bible. I'm going to stand before a Bible when I die, but I love the Bible. I've grown up studying the Bible. I've read through it multiple times. I still don't think that I'm going to be 100% right on everything that I say or believe.
Yeah.
But I am exploring, and I love the exploration.
Yeah, 100%. I am open to challenging things that I honestly, as a child growing up, in my church experiences, just took as factual truth.
Yeah.
Growing into church, I mean, I don't want to use indoctrination in a bad word, in a bad sense, but like there, I think was a lot of that where I just blindly accepted.
Dude, you know what? I have a great example of that. So I grew up being told that Satan was the worship leader in heaven before he fell. I was taught that, growing up.
Like actually?
Yeah, that he was, before he fell, that he was the worship leader in heaven. Did you get taught that at all?
I've never heard that.
I'm surprised, because you and I were both charismatic.
Very similar circles, right?
Yeah, so that was huge growing up for me. And I remember I became an interim pastor at the non-denominational church, but they were really Baptist with a cool website.
Okay.
But I said that at one point. I was like, well, yeah, when Satan was the worship leader in heaven, and pastor looks at me and he's like, when he was what? And I went, well, yeah. And he's like, wait a minute, hang on, go back. I'm like, dude, what is going on here? Like, doesn't everybody know this and believe this?
Right.
It was so great, man, because he really challenged me on it. He's like, where's that come from? And I'm like, I don't know. So, I mean, I looked and I could see, like, scripturally, I could see where they kind of got that.
Okay.
But I also realize now that, like, there's not really a strong basis to believe that he was the worship leader in heaven before he fell. You know?
Right.
But that's sure what I was taught.
Well, and I think that's where we end up in a lot of days here in society, is that there is interpretation of something, and how I interpret something, people take as factual truth.
Yeah.
And the value that we have is really just saying, this is something I'm processing, I'm thinking about. I don't know that I fully even connect on this or agree with this, but it's worth the exploration.
Absolutely. And we're not going to ever say anything that directly goes against the Bible.
Right.
But there are people who are going to say that what we're saying goes against the Bible.
Right.
And so we're never intentionally trying to say, like, we believe this, even though the Bible says this. That's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're trying to say that even though the Bible says this, there's a good chance that maybe we've misunderstood it.
Right.
Maybe it was translated wrong. Maybe there's reason to believe that. Like, there's lots of reason to believe that some of the things that people are taught in their churches are actually just really bad translations of the Bible.
Right.
So
yeah,
here we are.
It's fun. It's going to be fun to kind of explore that a little bit more and see maybe some of the things where we're seeing that we might have been missed the mark growing up.
Right.
And so I'm excited getting into that. And hopefully there's some people out there that they can kind of connect with that.
Absolutely.
And really just dive into that with us.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and last week we talked about this idea that church hurt is real. And I think that's a big part of why you and I even wanted to do this, is because we talked about that a lot.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because I feel like I've told you this story before, but I if I haven't, I really kind of want to go back into it.
The title of our episode today, which is...
It is My Pastor Threw Eggs at My Head. So
I cannot wait to hear this again.
Dude, yeah. So I think I've told you this again, but I kind of want to connect it to everything we're talking about today. And so back in the day, I was engaged and we were getting ready to do my bachelor party right before the wedding. And I had good friends who came over from, California and Texas, and we were all together. We were at a buddy's house and they had planned out some activities for the night. And I, of course, am just supposed to go along with it.
Right.
Well, what I didn't know was coming my way was that there's going to be an arm exercise for you guys later. And so what happened was I was sitting down. We were at my buddy's house and there's a big deck up high. And I was sitting down on the grass. And this is middle of October. It's a little cold outside, might be rainy. I'm like say 40 degrees at this point. So it's not that warm.
Yeah.
I'm sitting out there in this folding chair. And for some reason they had a studio grade spotlight. Like I don't know where it came from.
So these are the best bachelor parties, man, when you can set it all up and make it as professional as possible.
Oh yeah.
Because the next day is going to be great for the guy getting married, right? Absolutely. That's the whole point. So why not torture him a little bit the night before, right?
Memories, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So kind of especially for those guys who may already be married, a little bit like a welcome to the club.
Right.
Initiation.
Yep, initiation. There you go.
So I'm sitting down in the grass. There's a deck that's probably 15 feet high in the air, 15, 20 feet. And they got this giant spotlight pointed at me. It's dark. It's dark.
Yeah.
So we get ready to start. And then all of a sudden, one of my groomsmen is an actor and played some pretty fun roles.
Yeah. And
so he kicked it on. He put on his actor voice. And I was now a part of a German interrogation.
Oh geez.
So he triggered his German accent and really just kind of went for it. And they had developed a list of questions. We
probably just offended somebody right there with your German accent, and we didn't even know.
It's not good. I don't think I'm German. So
we're the Sanctified Heretics because we really suck at accents.
No. Yeah, right. So he's sitting there. They developed a list of questions that they were going to ask me. Now, some of these questions they had already ran through with my soon-to-be wife, and they had some answers, and there were some secret rules that they weren't telling me that I just had to try to figure out as it went. So they started asking me questions, and if I got a question wrong, the next thing you know, they were throwing eggs at me. So
okay, but you just said the title of the title of the message. See, there's my pastor coming back. The title of the episode is "My Pastor Threw Eggs at My Head."
That's because my pastor at the time was also a part of my wedding party.
Okay,
so he was taking part of the fun.
Okay,
and with it being so cold outside, these eggs turned more into rocks.
Oh Lord.
As I was answering these questions and missing some of them, I got pelted with eggs that did not break on impact. So I'm very fortunate. I didn't, I wasn't like bruised up anything for wedding photos or stuff like that, but it was a painful experience.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, I am sitting here listening to you tell that story. I feel like if we're going to talk about church hurt, then I should probably be the first person to come clean because I was your pastor throwing eggs at you at that event. It's terrible.
There's church hurt on the emotional level and church hurt on the physical level.
So this is terrible because I will never, ever not be able to think about that story and not die laughing. Because I was standing up there, man, and I'm telling you, when that egg hit your forehead and did not break, and it just bounced. I'm really, really glad that I'm married because I don't have to worry about getting married and inviting you to be one of my groomsmen, because I'm pretty sure I would be getting eggs hurled at my face too.
Yeah. I mean, you guys did do your big vow renewal last year. And
that's true. Yes. I think there wasn't a bachelor party.
Yeah. We kind of did a group of joint fun kind of.
Yeah. Joint group where I was protected and safe.
Say wisdom. There's wisdom in that because there's years of payback from that night.
Absolutely.
Like
waiting. You're probably plotting, man.
Well, I mean, so alcohol is a conversation that we can talk about at some point. But
we could drink about it too.
This is true. Take a drink about it. We in the celebration mode, right?
Yeah.
You had brought over a delicious special bottle to
Oh,
you.
you're going into this one now. Okay.
I have to.
All right.
We're talking
More
about
church hurt. More church hurt. Okay.
Church.
Okay.
So
Okay.
again, if your pastor hasn't done these things yet, I don't know if you can qualify it as church hurt.
I was a youth pastor for a long time.
Yeah,
so
I'm just kidding. We're not invalidating church hurt. But my other experience with church hurt and my pastor, physically, is that he had brought over this delicious bottle of scotch.
Yeah.
Very special to him. Earlier in the night, he had let me kind of smell it and get familiar with it. Well, after I was showering and cleaning up from being pelted with eggs,
yeah,
I came out, met up with everybody in the group, and
drink.
Yeah, we were going to take a drink, kind of a little celebratory drink. Well, he hands me this glass, this red Solo cup, and I smell it, and I'm like, oh, this smells just like the scotch that you had reminded me of earlier.
To be fair, it was a very, very nice bottle of scotch.
Very nice bottle of scotch. It is still, to this day, one of my favorite scotches.
I don't know how it's one of your favorite, but that's okay. You have to finish the story first.
Okay, so cheers, big old hoorah together. And I go, and I take a drink, and I taste all of a sudden a rush of salt. And why was there a rush of salt?
Oh man, that scotch needed a chaser, and the chaser was just a big. The bottle of scotch was nice, but so was the bottle of fish sauce that I poured into it. So that was another little nice way to get you ready for marriage.
I'm pretty sure it was like 75% fish sauce,
at least,
quarter scotch.
I did do the float of the scotch, so that
the scent was on top.
Yeah, the scent on top.
Yes, I had no idea. I was like, this is saltier than I remember it being, and then everybody's laughing, and then you thankfully came clean with the truth, and
absolutely,
and
we're still best friends.
Hey, I think it actually built a foundation for that.
Yeah, probably did. Yeah, and that's the thing. So to be perfectly honest, obviously we've got some fun stories. We probably have both just had to. I mean, that's what all friends do, right? Like you egg each other on, and
right. See what you did there,
and. We thought that was honestly kind of a fun way to segue into this conversation, because I have to step back and I have to admit that this may have been all in fun, but there's definitely times that as a pastor that I caused hurt, man.
Absolutely.
I hate that. That sucks. And I've certainly been the victim of that because church hurt is very, very real. And as a pastor, you see people all the time that are going through different things.
Yeah.
And you have to be really careful. You want to help, you want to heal, you want to be a part of their process. I guarantee you, like the whole entire time that I was a pastor, like my heart was to be a healer.
Right.
Did I mess up? Absolutely. I make mistakes? Absolutely. I hope that I was able to take responsibility for those things that happened, and sometimes you don't have an opportunity to take responsibility, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But it happens. And so whenever I hear a pastor say that church hurt isn't real,
right.
I get really frustrated because I was a pastor and I saw those things taking place, and church hurt definitely has a biblical foundation. If you look at Matthew 18, Jesus is talking about the little children.
Yeah.
And he says, if any of you harms one of these little children,
right.
And he tells us that we're supposed to come into the kingdom of God like a child, right?
Right.
So he's not just talking about kids, but he's talking about this metaphorically too. If any of you hurts a child, one of my children, it's better for you to have a millstone hung around your neck to be thrown into the sea. And he says, offenses are going to come,
right?
But woe to those who cause those offenses,
right?
Then you go in James 3, and in James 3, he's writing and he's talking about this idea that if you're a leader, if you're a teacher, if you're someone who's a pastor, you're going to be held to a higher standard.
Yeah.
So there is a responsibility, even though we're human, we are going to mess up.
Yeah.
But there is a responsibility on leaders to be able to take seriously that call to pastor people well and protect them.
For me, in my life, like the times that I think I've felt and I've experienced the most of the church hurt, wasn't because necessarily of the incident or the experience that took place.
Yeah.
What it was the lack of accountability and the lack of responsibility and ownership over it afterwards. And I think it's challenging because I'm the kind of person where if you can own up to your stuff, if you can say, hey, I messed up in this, I was wrong, or I'm so sorry that you experienced that you went through this, or whatever it might be, if there's a level of humility that is presented,
absolutely,
my heart opens up, and I am a lot more willing to accept that, and I can process through that so much easier. But when I get to a place where I am vulnerable, vulnerable experience happens, hurt takes place, and then I try to be vulnerable in expressing my feelings, and that I'm hurt by that.
Yeah.
And the response I don't receive is more of the response that I do receive, I should say, is more of, be gracious with me. We're human too.
Right. Yeah.
Versus, wow, yeah, no, that really, I can totally see how that could have hurt you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
When I receive those responses, I'm a lot more closed off.
Well, it brings you back into relationship. And I mean,
Right.
that's the whole thing. I have seen relationships grow in my life and the life of others dramatically just by someone being able to apologize well.
Right.
I remember times when I would have to confront people, and there was one time in particular where I had to confront one of the kids in my youth group, and lay down some hard stuff, man. And everybody told me, they're like, dude, that family is going to leave. They're not going to be able to handle this. And I remember her looking at me just big-eyed and going, thank you so much for sharing this with me. Thank you for telling me this.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I want to make this different. And that kid became one of my closest kids that I worked with.
Wow.
Most amazing leaders, and still is an amazing leader to this day.
Yeah.
Like, that opportunity for reconciliation did so much for our relationship that just simply living life wasn't doing.
Right. And that's the thing. And we've even gone through this in our own relationship, that we've had to go through moments where they've been those tough conversations. There's been those hard topics, and we've had maybe more pastor like conversations
in the past.
And at the end of that, I know for me, I've always left it in a place where I'm like processing the pain, because the pain sucks. But always felt like I feel way closer and way stronger with you now because of that. So those are valuable conversations to have. Absolutely.
100%. Yeah.
You know,
well, and so let's look at this from both sides, right? Because so much of what we see nowadays is one side or the other, right?
Right.
And so we have a lot of people who are expressing their hurt over here, and they have every right to. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think they should.
Right.
But you have people over here, leaders or anybody who's caused hurt, over here going, we're trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to keep ourselves out of the light, out of the place of responsibility. And if you had done this, if you had acted this way, and this is what really happened. And so there's this like broad spectrum, but there's an in between. There's a spot in the middle.
Absolutely.
And the truth is, I can tell you, as a pastor, I had people that were really painful to me to be able to pastor sometimes. It's really hard because I did have people in my congregation that could be mean-spirited, that could say things really horribly, or that were offended by anything and everything, you know? And so there is that is real. And so as a pastor, that can be very overwhelming sometimes, but that never gives you a right. That never gives me a right, or any other pastor a right, to be able to cause hurt purposefully, and not be responsible for that hurt.
Right.
I mean, I guess we're talking about hurts that are not, legal issues. That's a whole different thing.
Yes.
Like,
that's,
oh my gosh, that's a whole different thing, man. And that's a problem in the church right now too.
Absolutely.
People who don't want to be accountable for the things that they should probably end up going to jail for, that they did. That,
I mean, we've seen it in
causing pain to people.
We've seen it in our own communities. I mean,
absolutely.
And we both know people who have been drastically affected by things that are big legal issues.
Right.
And that's just separate. Again, the legal issues suck. The morality of it sucks. It also sucks on how the impact that's left now on their relationship with the church.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be brutally honest. And the egg thing was funny. That was the good time. Had a good time with that. But, when I did step down from ministry as a full-time pastor, I was going through a really hard time of my life. And I was trying to be a full-time chef, trying to be a full-time pastor, and I wasn't doing either of those really well. And it was just taking over my life. And I got to the point of where I realized that I was going to lose my family if something didn't change. And instead of being the guy who tries to hide everything, I was real honest. And I wrote my church a big letter, and I said, hey, I'm not being the husband that I need to be right now, not being the leader that I need to be right now. I have no right to be your pastor. I'm stepping down. I'm done. I'm out. And I'm going to work on my family.
I remember that.
I mean, you were there. You were
Yeah.
part of the whole thing. And that was incredibly difficult.
Oh,
But I had this real come to Jesus moment where I'm like, I'm doing so many things wrong. Um, and I want to get this right.
right.
Because I've seen so many pastors fail miserably when it comes to this. I don't want to be the guy that gets found out and then his whole entire life blows up without him being ready for it.
No control, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not that you're in the business to try to control everything.
Yep.
However, you just want to do things well.
Yeah, it wasn't a control issue. It was just a responsibility issue.
Yeah.
It was like, I want to take the responsibility. I want to be able to step up to the plate and be like, hey, like, nobody's going to find this out. I'm telling you.
Right.
This is where I'm at. This is what's going on. And I'm stepping away.
Yeah. And I mean, even in that moment, I mean, we were friends at that point, and our friendship grew a lot more after that.
Yep.
But even remember, the level of respect, I think in the midst of everybody I think there's a lot of confusion from people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like question marks. And I think that might have spurred a little bit of fear because people just are afraid of the unknown sometimes.
Yeah.
But in the midst of all that processing, the amount of respect and the amount of trust that I had for you grew tremendously, because I know this guy is going to own things that are wrong, things that aren't going well. And he's not going to sit there and hide it. And like you said, like, hidden things don't ever produce good.
No, man. The Bible says that. The Bible says that whatever's hidden is going to be brought to the light. And I mean, honestly, I couldn't share everything with everybody because it wasn't appropriate to.
Right.
Not everybody needs 100% of the information.
True.
But I told them the information that was important. And then the people who were close to me are the ones who knew my whole entire life and what was going on. And we invited help in. We invited people to come and be a part of the process.
Yeah.
And we even went to a non-Christian counselor.
Wow.
Non-Christian counselor.
Okay.
And I'm telling you right now is the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
I had never been to a counselor for anything, you know. I was always taught if you have a problem, you go to your pastor.
Right.
Which is terrible. That's
Can't do that if you're the pastor, right?
Good Lord, right? Well, yeah, and that's just dumb.
Yeah.
Because pastors are not trained in professional counseling.
Yeah.
My non-Christian counselor was phenomenal, became one of our best friends, man, and walked us through a time where my marriage literally could have fallen apart.
Yeah.
I've lost everything. And if not for Jesus first, right?
Like 100%,
I never ever lost sight of who Jesus was in the midst of that, but Jesus was leading me. And I know Jesus led me to that counselor.
Right.
And I'm so thankful for her. She'll never know just how grateful I am for the way that she walked through our painful process.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's my experience of being a part of that. We have stories though of, you know, being hurt and
absolutely.
We want to be careful of that. We don't want this to become like a big sob story of, oh, this is what happened to us. But we're doing this for the sake of being able to say, like, to you, like, we get it. We understand.
Right.
We've been there. We've experienced this. It sucks. If you need validation, we will be the first ones to tell you you have a right to feel that way.
Right.
You have a right to feel hurt.
Well, no, in no way is it our desire either to, in the midst of, as we're kind of sharing our experiences, no way is it our desire to tear down a grouping of people or an organization, anything like that. Like, our desire is to simply open up the door into our lives and say, this is what I went through.
Absolutely.
This is my experience. I'm not saying this to tear them down. I'm just saying it so you have an understanding of why maybe I'm at where I'm at today, you know? And so,
and some people do really want to respond. Some people do want the people who hurt them to step up.
Right.
And I think that's a big part of why they're sharing their stories. And I get that. I understand. And I will tell you, I don't know if you're ever going to get that. And that sucks. But you're going to have to figure out who to surround yourself with that is going to love you and support you as you process that. There's a good chance, gosh, I've known these people. I've known these pastors. There's a good chance these pastors are never going to step up and take responsibility until something really bad goes wrong. Where they are looking at maybe jail time or serious like offenses that are going to lead to them losing their ministry, losing their families, losing whatever, you know?
You can hope, right? I mean, that's the hope that's what takes place.
Well, the hope is that they take responsibility before that takes place.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. And so if you know, bringing it together, when we share experiences, hopefully this is something you can can connect with from sharing that experience.
Yeah.
But hopefully you can connect with the idea that we have been where you're at.
Yeah.
We've gone through some tough things when it comes to an organization. Maybe not the big C church, and we talked about a little bit before. We're not here to tear down
body of Christ.
The body of Christ is itself, rather just talk through the painful things that organized religion has brought to our life.
Yeah.
But we hope that you are able to gain some healing and some validation through this process.
Yep.
You know, if my pain can bring healing to others,
right,
I think that's all for God's glory at that point.
Absolutely. You know? I know that, you know, the things that I personally experienced and went through, they're never part of God's plan.
No.
But I do know that it has given me a better opportunity to look back and to be able to say, I don't want to be that person.
Right.
Even though I was raised in that, even though I was, that was the example that was set for me by leaders.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the example that I carry.
Right.
I'm not going to allow my circumstances to define me,
mm-hmm.
but I will allow my circumstances to influence
100%.
How I am better,
right,
and how that I lead better, and how that I love better, and how that I serve better. When I was growing up, so the church I grew up in for the first 12 years of my life, oh my gosh, the pastor we had was just absolutely wonderful. One of the kindest men. People still talk about him to this day. He's since left this world to be with Jesus. But man, one of the most kindest men ever. He was a true pastor. He really did love people. Wow. When he left, when I was in 5th grade, I remember sitting on the front row at church, and he made the announcement that he was leaving, and I ran out of the church sobbing. The church like 1,000 people. But I remember I just ran out of the church sobbing, and I know I wasn't the only one crying that day. And then from there, we had another pastor came in that was part of our church he was our pastor for the next 15 years. And he was night and day, you know, and I ended up developing a good relationship with him in a lot of ways. But there were also some things that were so night and day, drastically different from the pastor that I experienced originally. It made things hard for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people too. And I remember when I was in high school, I knew that I wanted to be a pastor. And there was this opportunity that came for me to go speak at another church in town, and it was a African American Baptist church.
Okay.
And I was so excited, man. I'm like, dude, I get to do this. And I'm probably a senior in high school, I think. And so I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I've never stepped out of my church before. I don't know what this church is like. But I was like, I'm gonna go all like, I wanted to go balls to the wall. So I had this like white suit.
Oh,
bro. And so I was like all decked out, man. So my buddies and I, we go to this church, had an amazing time. The church was so receptive, kind people. And I preached my heart out, man. I gave it everything I had as a senior in high school. Didn't know much about nothing. But afterwards, I had to go drop some stuff off at the pastor's house from my church.
Okay.
And so I get there. I'm still like real lit up, man. Adrenaline.
Right.
Great night. And I walk up to the door in my white suit. It's a Sunday night. And the pastor had a bunch of people from the church at his house.
Okay.
And so I was just going to hopefully just drop it off and then hit the road. So I knock on the door, and the pastor answers the door, and he looks at me, and he has this immediate like sarcastic grin on his face. And he looks at me and he goes, Sean, the word it comes to mind.
No.
And I look, and all of the people in the church or all these people from the church are like right behind him and can hear the whole thing. My night was shot. It was done at that point. I had just had this amazing experience living out my calling as a pastor. And I got in my car and I drove home going, my pastor just called me a faggot. That sucked. That really, really sucked, man.
Yeah.
And I got home. I told my parents, my dad, real manly man, you know, and he was mad. He was really mad. And my mom was like, let me handle it. So my mom calls, talks to him, tells him that she's really upset about what he said. And the next day I had to go to the church, and he came walking down the hall, and I was in an office, and he stops at the door and he looks in and he goes, hey, Sean, yeah, I'm sorry for what I said last night, but you're going to have to stop running to your parents about everything. And he walked off. And so,
oh man,
obviously that's a story I've never forgot. I mean, it was obviously very, very much like a big, like piece of my history.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, man, like I don't know if he realized what a mark he was going to make on my life in that moment. What scares me even more is I'm not sure if he cared.
Gosh.
And he ended up going through a lot of hard stuff in his life too. There were a lot of things that happened that I think kind of called him to some accountability for some of the things that he said to other people.
Yeah.
But I never felt like I ever truly was given the apology that I felt like I deserved. Maybe not deserved, maybe just needed.
Right.
In order to be able to walk past that.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where we say, like, I'm thankful because I hope I never, ever treat somebody like that.
Right.
I never say anything that affects somebody and hurts somebody the way that hurt me. And honestly, I hate to say it. I mean, I'm sure I have. I hate that. But part of that is I had a lot of learning to do.
Right.
A lot of getting that type of leadership programmed out of me,
Right.
because you go, that sucked, but that's what I grew up in, and that's how people do things. Maybe that's just how we do things.
Well, I mean, it's you have the opportunity when you're going through those painful moments, right? Those really, really could be deep and marking experiences in your life. You have an opportunity. You can two ways you can go.
Yeah.
Number one, you can sit there and you can become a victim of those experiences and a victim of those circumstances. The other opportunity is you can sit there and you become a victor over those circumstances.
You got a choice, yeah.
And it sounds like in your processing, you taking that to heart and saying, "Man, I hope that this is never an experience that I give somebody else." I mean, that to me sounds like somebody who wanted to fight out of that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really know like how I really processed through that. I think it was years of, again, deprogramming.
Yeah.
But I do look back on that now, and I think ultimately it's a choice to say that happened. I can't change that.
Right.
I'm one of those guys that if something bad happens, like there's this immediate thing in me that's like, I can't change that. That sucks.
Right.
How do I change this? Like, some things doesn't matter, right? If I drop and break this glass, I mean, I can't change it. It's broken.
Whoops.
Other things that I'm like, dang it, like, I want to be able to fix this.
Where's the rewind button, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But there's no fixing it. Like, there's no changing it. And so I have to make this decision. And I learned this a long time ago, and it's not easy. It's not easy. But if somebody punches me in the face, I'm going to have a black eye.
Right.
There's nothing I can do to change that. If I punch them back, they might have a black eye, but I'm still going to have a black eye.
Right.
So me hurting somebody else ain't doing anything to fix the fact that I still got a black eye.
Now you both got black eye.
Now we both got black
Winning,
eye.
right?
Yeah, sometimes that feels really good. But it doesn't change the fact that I got a black eye.
Right.
And so I think that people really want that, that feeling of, I want to fix this. I don't want a black eye. You got a black eye.
Yeah.
If you're hurt, like, you're hurt. That sucks. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But you were hurt. And now the only thing to do is to figure out how to be able to live with what happened to you. There's different levels, right? Like, there's things that you can say, that sucks. That was no fun. I'm moving on. It wasn't as big as it could be.
Right.
And there's other things that are absolutely huge. And learning how to live with that hurt, how to be able to just sit there in it. It's not easy.
No.
When it all is said and done, like, that's kind of what we have to do.
Yeah.
We have to be able to learn how to sit with what has happened to us. Not saying that people don't need to be accountable. I don't know how many times I can say that. People really should be accountable, but you cannot control that sometimes.
You can't control other people. Like, no matter what you did, there is nothing you could have done to have forced that pastor to maybe have a heart change in a perspective that said, wow, I really did screw this up. That was not okay.
Yeah.
Outside of obviously prayer and surrendering that at that point to Jesus, not to say surrender and let go, but just really say, this is tough. This has been on my heart.
Yeah.
I need your help because I don't know. I can't do anything about this.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing you could do. And it's unfortunate. And that's why I think sometimes the church hurt side is so hard because that the lack of control, not control. I don't want to say control because I don't think that's people's intention. I think the lack of ability to get what people probably need in those moments oftentimes paints the bigger picture that this place and maybe even Jesus is no longer safe.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is this big thing right now with people who are experiencing church hurt, and they're saying, no more, I can't do it anymore.
Right.
Good. You shouldn't have to do it anymore.
Yes.
There is a point where you should say enough is enough. Sadly, though, many of those people are not just walking away from church, they're walking away from Jesus. I can't do that. That's not in me to do. I know Jesus more than I've ever known church. And so church has never been for me. And I realize it's not the same for everybody, but church has never been my be all end all. This is what's up.
Right.
A lot of people end up going to church because somebody invited them. I was raised in the church. A lot of people end up meeting Jesus because somebody was willing to relationally invest in them.
Yeah.
And then in the midst of all of that, these things happen. These terrible, horrible, painful things happen. And you go, wow, I have not been here my whole life. I invited Jesus to be my savior. But now I'm thinking that maybe my life was just fine before I did that, because this whole church thing sucks. Yep, I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
I bet it did suck.
If Jesus was supposed to be my savior, why couldn't he save me from the hurt that I was,
Or how can I trust that Jesus is real when these people are
hurting
me so badly?
Supposed to be a representation of him.
Yeah. Yep.
Or everything that I'm learning he's done.
Yeah. Yep. And so there is, people need to be like really at that place. Leaders have to be able to understand, like, you're representing people, you're representing Jesus to people before they really know Jesus for themselves.
Yeah.
I am really grateful because my parents taught me to know Jesus for myself. I was never trusting anyone else to do that for me. But we have a church system set up that kind of does everything for you. And so there's not a lot of struggle. It's like, you're struggling with this. Well, we got a program for that. Or your kids are crying in church, send them to the nursery. And
go check out this Bible study. Go look at that small group. Go.
Yep. And so we program so much of stuff into people that we're actually, like, our salvation is tied to a program way more than it's tied to the person of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
The person of Jesus and the organizational church are not the same.
No.
They are so far off from the same.
Right.
And honestly, like, I think that there's always going to be a place for the organizational church, even though I don't really want to go to it. Maybe that'll change. I don't know that it will. But I really do have a problem with the way that the church is organized right now, because so much of it is built to funnel back into itself.
Right.
And so we build our programs in the church in order to sustain the church.
Yeah.
Whereas church originally, if we look at Jesus's model, Jesus said, go into all the world, preach the gospel, heal the sick, raise the dead, cast out demons, cleanse lepers. He was very clear, like, being a part of the church, the true church, is very active.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is not a program. It is not a children's ministry. It is not being an usher on Sunday mornings. It is not being a part of the tech team or the worship team or this or that. Those are all things that we created.
Right.
We added that to the package that Jesus created. We didn't really need to. The package that Jesus created was good enough.
I mean, I would have been impressed if back in the day Jesus was be able to, have a full band, the sound system,
maybe
everything.
Pretty sick. Jesus jamming.
Maybe that was one of the miracles that wasn't recorded.
Yeah, the miracle of the band.
The miracle of the sound system.
Yeah, there you go. Miracle of the sound system. Yeah. I do know that there's a lot of things that Jesus did. There's a lot of things that Jesus didn't do.
Right.
And so reading into that and creating things on top of that doesn't always serve us.
Yeah. No, that's recognizing that difference between Jesus, his role and responsibility, and the organization's role and responsibility sounds like one of those things that really kept you grounded to your faith.
Yeah.
Because you recognize this isn't Jesus hurting me.
Yeah.
This is an organization that is flawed. There's people involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've been through some hard stuff.
Yeah. Too. Yeah. And for me, gosh, I mean, we similar backgrounds, similar upbringings, grew up inside of the church. I went to ministry school, was served an internship at a church in children's ministry, came back to Yakima, started getting involved back in church again, and eventually landed with you guys and then transitioned on. And I was a part of an organization, a church here locally, and I've been serving there for about a year. And I started to experience some frustrations. I in that year, relationships are really important to me. I'm a really relational person, and I tend to feel like I'm not valued if I don't feel growth in relationship. If I'm serving with somebody.
So funny story. Like I learned early on with you that you really highly valued communication. And you would call me on the phone every once in a while. I want to just chat. And holy crap, man, I hate talking on the phone. Oh my gosh, I hate talking on the phone. And I'd see you call and I'm like, oh crap, what do I do? We had that conversation, right? I was like, hey, listen, if you want to talk and you really want to talk, maybe call me, let me know, or text me, and let me know you want to have a conversation. But if you're gonna like just call me out of the blue, man, I suck at this and I hate it with all my heart.
That's the honesty, right?
That's the honesty, right? Of friendship, right?
Dude.
So, sorry, I know I threw that off, but I think that's important to talk about, right? We had to talk about it.
It's funny because and from that conversation, I remember so vividly, you always said, like, if you call me and you don't get a hold of me, you better leave me a voicemail or text me.
Yeah.
Because if you call me and you don't get a hold of me and you don't leave one of those, I'm not calling you back. Like, so it's so funny because you talk about that.
Probably church hurt too. Sorry.
I remember that so vividly, like, marking points. So I always make sure if I call you, I hate leaving voicemails. I don't know why. I just don't like leaving a voicemail. I feel like I sound weird to them, but I will always make sure and send you a text and be like, hey, checking in on this, or whatever. So, it's,
and we do talk. I mean, that's the thing. At the end of the day, we do talk. I'm not going to take your value and say, well, it's not my value, so I don't care about it.
Well,
but it's just trying to figure out how to honor each other, right?
Exactly.
Trying to figure out how each person's contribution is good.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So as valuing communication, relationship, things that help grow. So I was serving at this church for a while and I was starting to experience some frustrations. I think part of it was that what I felt was that I'm like, I've been serving for almost a year now and faithfully. And I mean, when I'm saying serving, I said, if you ever need somebody on a whim, call me.
Yeah.
Text me.
I'm your guy.
I will help you. And it happened several times. I mean, there'd be some months I'd be 3 or 4 Sundays in a month I would be serving. And I loved it. And I will say part of that in my ownness in that was that I found validation in my service. And so I don't know that I was always serving from a clean heart. And I own that. And I think that was part of what led down to the destruction, everything. But at one point, I just was feeling like I have been serving in this ministry for this long, and I don't feel like I know the pastors, the leaders of this ministry much better than I did after the first month or so, and it was just tough. And I am a verbal, this about me, I'm a verbal processor. I oftentimes will shut down if I can't process something verbally because I don't know what to do with it. So I had some people that I felt close to who knew and were very involved in that ministry, sometimes would lead in absences and
help me out with
to process with them and just kind of express some frustrations, maybe gain some clarity. Am I wrong in this? Am I there something I'm overstepping, or my feelings, too much about this? And eventually at one point I was feeling frustrated. I was supposed to serve on Easter, and like 2 or 3 weeks before, I ended up declining the serve notification through their software. Well, it wasn't until I declined that later that day, it was a Sunday. I remember it was a couple weeks before I declined it. And later that Sunday, I got a message saying, "Hey, I've been hearing that you've been having some frustrations. And I've noticed now that you're not going to be serving anymore. What's going on?" And so that for me was like, I was confused. I was a little slightly frustrated. I was like, okay, hold on. Let me wrap this around. That there's been frustrations. You may have heard it from the people I was close to expressing and processing, but you waited to reach out until I was no longer serving in the ministry.
Yeah. And so let's set this up, right? So you've been serving, no questions asked. Like they can count on you to show up.
Absolutely
show up. You're there. So for them, like their life's looking pretty good right now.
Right.
They got somebody, and
consistent.
Worship is tough because you don't always have people who are skilled and talented and able to do that. So you're doing all of that. And then Easter is the mother of all Sundays. Like that is the Sunday.
Easter and Christmas are like your two biggest Sundays of the
Yep.
year.
And I would say Easter is even bigger than Christmas.
Absolutely. I would. Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, you've been asking for some feedback, asking for some help, asking how to kind of process through this. But then the way that you get the response is you tell them you're not going to serve on Easter, and bam, they're ready to talk, right?
Yeah. And I think
this is the church world for you, unfortunately.
Yeah.
This is how it works sometimes.
And I'm definitely one to, I want to, I probably could have been better. I maybe should have at some point gone to them and said, hey, I'm having some frustrations. Can we talk?
Yeah.
So again, like I want to be very honest in that, because I don't want to paint a picture that's not accurate.
Sure, absolutely.
And so fast forward, and I'm at this place. We get this. So finally, we set up a time to talk, and we're talking on the phone, and I'm expressing kind of the stuff that's going on, what I'm seeing and experiencing, the things that are frustrating to me. And it almost, it felt like I was like, I don't feel like I really don't feel like I understood what it meant to have somebody gaslight you until that moment. And I think, part of my response I got back was like, hey, well, you kind of got to take that on to build your own community, and, and this, that, the other. And, part of it was like, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. And then, at leaving that conversation, it was like, hey, well, we should plan a time. Let's have you over for dinner. I'm like, okay, great. Time goes by. Never any follow-up from that.
Yeah.
I never got another message. Nothing.
Yeah.
So again, it's just one of those things where it's like all this talk, but where are the actions behind it? The gaslighting was tough to navigate in itself, but it's like, okay, maybe there's some hope if you want to have me, over for dinner. Like, I'm open to that. I'm hurt right now, but I think I would be open to that. And then nothing, it just dropped, So dealing with that at the same time that was going on, I was a part of, through the same organization, through the same church, I was doing some church planning with that group. And there was a couple weeks where there's about a month, 2 months maybe, where my life got really busy. I was coaching basketball for a traveling basketball team at that time for some youth. And I was gone very frequently on Sundays, and the church planning team would meet on Sundays, and they really wanted to, their goal was to build this life, do life together as a community, things that I think we've actually done naturally very well.
Yeah, sure.
But this was their goal. They wanted to get very back to like the old biblical church, very community based, breaking bread, drinking wine, stuff like that. And so I'd been missing some Sundays because of traveling. Well, I reached out. We had a big group text where everybody's a part of it. And I reached out once. I was like, man, I really miss you guys. I hope you guys are having a good, week, having a good Sunday, hanging out, blah, 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 whatever. Can't wait to connect back with you guys. Never got a single, and you guys know technology. You can heart a message, you can like, nothing. I got no response. I got no like. I got no heart. I got nothing. I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. So a couple weeks go back, and I'm still, oh man, I'm really feeling like I miss them. Send another text message out. Man, I really miss you guys. Again, a whole other message, a whole other attempt to kind of express connection and communication. Nothing.
Yeah.
It just fell dead. And I was like, oh, well, at this time we were meeting together with a bunch of friends every Sunday. And I was like, this is not a group that I need. I don't need this group. I'm wanting and choosing to try to be a part.
For relationship.
Yeah. But I don't need this. Yeah. I have a group and community of people who want me to be a part, who, if I don't show up, they're going to text me saying, hey, we really missed you. Are you doing okay? And I was just,
and that was not a church group. To be clear, this had nothing, no basis around like
we were not in an organization.
Yeah.
Now
I think it was very biblical.
It was very churchy, biblically wise. Like old time, we would get together, we would break bread.
Yeah.
We'd talk about hard things in life. We would talk about things that we're thinking through faith wise. I mean, it was just. I
just want to be clear. This wasn't trading one church for another church.
No. Yeah. It just, at that time, I was like, I have this, I want to build what I'm seeing in this right now, and so I ended up leaving that group text. Now I left that group text. Now I'm getting, oh, where'd you go? What's going on? I'm like, oh, and I told him, I was like, people don't care. Like, this is how I'm feeling. People don't care. It doesn't matter if I'm here. So I'd rather go invest somewhere else. And the response was, oh, well, people care. They said, the moment you left, so-and-so messaged me saying what's going on. I said, oh, the same so-and-so that also has my phone number who could have messaged me?
Yeah.
That's what I'm just like, it felt very, so it was hard. And I think, to be honest, I grew up in the church, in the system, in the reproduction. Like, there's a lot of it. If I had not had you guys, I think walking away would have looked a lot different.
Yeah.
I think it would have been harder to stay connected to Jesus at that time, because I remember talking through conversations with you where it was a reminder of who's Jesus in the midst of this.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things we talked about quite a bit, is that we have learned to be responsible for our relationship with Jesus outside of a church structure.
Yeah.
And that's huge. That's massive. A lot of people don't know how to do that. And I think that's something we should talk about. I think we should absolutely have that conversation, because there are people who have been hurt, who are deconstructing from church and Jesus. And maybe that wouldn't be the case if there were people coming alongside saying, hey, listen, like, you don't have to go back there right now. Maybe you don't have to go back there ever. But here's what it looks like to stay connected with Jesus.
Yeah.
Here's some things you can do to make sure that your heart is still connected to him.
Yeah.
Because Jesus said, I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you.
Right.
The way that the church sometimes paints it is the church, if you walk away, we're taking Jesus with us.
Right.
Right. So you can leave and go home, but Jesus stays here. That's how people feel a lot of the time.
Gosh.
And that's how we've experienced things too, is there's this perspective from people that will be like, man, if you're not going to church, you must not be a Christian anymore. No, actually, my faith has grown dramatically. And well, yeah, but you believe this now and you're doing this now. And if you're in church, you probably wouldn't be talking about that. And so clearly you're not connected with Jesus, because now you believe things dramatically different than us.
Right.
And so your experience doesn't look like ours, which means that you no longer know Jesus. And honestly, most of the time, I just kind of keep my mouth shut and walk away, because I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to change their perspective on that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. Like, I can live with that. Are we going to talk about it here? Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely going to talk about it here.
And it's not my responsibility to change somebody's heart and perspective around it. I fully leave that up to Jesus.
Right.
Those people, we've said this, we've talked about it. We said, if you want to sit and you want to have an honest, respectful, and honoring conversation around this, I'm more than happy to invite you into this space.
Absolutely.
But if you want to sit online, if you want to be a jerk behind a keyboard, that's not something I'm signing up for.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's one of the comments we got on our last video was, do you even read the Bible? Yeah, I study it too. But that's those conversations that immediately shut off relationship.
Right.
That's okay. If that's what you need to do, that's okay.
Right.
I don't think that's what Jesus exemplified. I don't think that's the pattern that the Bible sets out. So if you want to call me on whether or not I know the Bible, I'm going to call you back on your response, which was not biblical.
Right.
If you want to talk about these things, then we can talk. If you want relationship, that's the whole point. But we got to be able to do it in a way that is honoring, because if you're dishonoring me, you're also dishonoring Jesus.
Absolutely.
And that's a pretty big deal too.
And the Bible is very clear that we are made after his image.
Yeah.
So if I'm coming after somebody else who's made in his image,
oh boy,
am I not coming after him?
Watch out, man.
And it's one of those things where it's like, I have such a value for people who share a different perspective and a different viewpoint for me, because with us all being made in his image, I get diversity of who Jesus, who God is. People are seeing things through a different light because of their life. But it's all, at the end of the day, I try to take it as, this is a different perspective potentially of who God is, and I don't ever want to push away something that might take me closer to Jesus.
Yep.
And the only challenging part is that it's when it's being thrown at you or shoved into you or things like that, that's where I get turned off. That's where I'm like, I can't, like, I don't need you to stab me in the name of Jesus.
Right.
I need you to hug me.
Yeah.
And so when we get to that point, now I'm willing to sit there and process, and I will be a lot more willing to say, hey, yeah, no, you have some really good points on that. I can see. Thank you for your concern. But when you sit there and you tell me that that my friends are leading me away from the Jesus, that I don't know the real Jesus, things like that.
Yeah.
Like, and then also try to say, I love you. That's why I'm saying this. Like,
Yeah.
I don't see that,
Yeah.
there's no hate like a Christian's love.
Well, and I've heard people say for a long time, I remember I was young when I heard someone say this, but they said that the Christian church is the only army that kills its wounded. And that's a sucky reality, man. That's it, but it is often true, and I hate that. I'll say this, and I know that we have talked a long time. We probably got to wrap up so that we can start thinking about another episode.
Right.
But I will say this, and this is huge to me. My son, I only have one son, and he's everything to me, man.
Yeah.
Like that kid is my heart. And we have such a great relationship, man. I love hanging out with him. We love doing things together. And I'm telling you right now, man, if anybody was to get in between me and my son, and if I see that my son is trying to get to me and that person is trying to hold them back, watch out, because you're going to see a different Sean come out and you ain't going to like it.
Right.
And you may not be standing by the time I'm done, because anybody who tries to get between me and my son is going to meet the side of Sean that you don't want to meet.
Right.
And I'm telling you that God is the same way.
100%.
And we don't want to hold on to that tension. We want to be able to say, you can come to Jesus, but you got to do this, 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 and this. And you can't come to Jesus and can't be a Christian if you do this, this, or this. And I'm telling you right now, God's looking at those people and going, you better get out of the way.
Right.
Because if they want to run to me, you better let them run to me.
100%.
Because those are my kids. And it doesn't matter what Asher has done wrong. It doesn't matter what mistakes he's made.
No.
That kid wants to run to me, man. My arms are wide open. And we'll figure it out when he gets here.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you right now, don't get in the way of me and my son. And I will tell you that for Jeremy and I, the last thing we want to do is to get in between you and Jesus.
100%.
And if we can, we're going to do everything we can to point out where he is and look at you in the face and say, run.
Yeah.
And we will not be in your way.
No.
But we will do everything that we can to make sure that you know where he is and to make sure that you are ready to run, because he is certainly ready to run to you.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we got some fun things to talk about.
Oh, man.
We're never going to have enough time to do all this, but we're going to do it anyway.
Getting good.
It's going to be good. If you've experienced hurt, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I hope that the people who hurt you will take responsibility.
Well, as somebody who has served in ministry, who's been a part of that, like, I apologize for you. I want you to see that there's other ways that things can be handled than what you've experienced.
Absolutely. So, Jeremy, I'm sorry I threw eggs at your head. Apologize.
Yeah. So, wrapping things up here, I know church hurt. It happens.
Yeah.
It sucks. I'm so sorry. As someone who has been in leadership, served in a church, I'm sorry for people who have hurt you, who haven't taken responsibility for that. And I hope at some point you get what you need, whether it's the responsibility and the accountability or peace in your heart.
Yep, absolutely. And we, as a pastor, I'm sorry for the pastors that have hurt you. I'm certainly sorry for the times that I've caused pain. And people are always welcome to reach out. And if they need some validation from me, I will listen. But I want you to know, no matter where you're at, don't run from Jesus. Don't run from Jesus. You can run from the church all you want to, from the organization all you want to. But please, please, please don't think that Jesus is the same thing, because I guarantee you that he's not. He loves you so much. Yeah. And you've got a place in his arms. Even if you don't want to find your place in the church, that's something that we understand. Yep. And again, I haven't been a part of a church for over 3 years. Yeah. I'm okay with that. I think Jeremy's okay with that too.
I am.
Because we have found that our place comes from Jesus first. Yes. And it comes from the people that we surround ourselves with. That's our gathering. Those are the people that we break bread with, and we spend time talking through issues and being there for each other, providing for each other. That's what a church does. And here we are telling you that Jesus is welcoming you with open arms, the same way he's welcomed us, the same way he continues to welcome anyone and everyone.
Absolutely.
The table's a lot bigger than we think it is.
Yeah. I love that.
Well, this is so much fun. I can't wait to do it again.
Absolutely.
My name's Sean. I'm the pastor that doesn't go to church.
My name is Jeremy, and I'm the best friend of the pastor that doesn't go to church.
And we are
the Sanctified Heretics.
We'll catch you next time right here.